Hello, and thanks for tuning in again for another episode of All In Metals. Tonight I wanted to see about giving some tips and recommendations for some first line of defense in purchasing gold and silver. Obviously the first line of defense is to buy from a reputable dealer and someone you trust. But even when you do that, and when you procure other items from maybe local coin shops, etc., which should already be tested as well, this just gives you some peace of mind of some of these items that you can use to firsthand check them out yourself. So, like using a jeweler's loupe and a scale to weigh and understanding that. Actually, maybe even also understanding exactly how much product you did receive. So say you bought a 10-ounce bar and you get 10.01 or 10.02 ounces, you know that you received a certain amount of little extra in there, but also it helps you to understand that you're buying something that is legitimate and sized appropriately and weighing out as to what you anticipated it to be. So doing comparisons is a great idea to understand if you're buying from multiple sources of the same product. Sometimes certain products can take on different dimensions, so you want to be aware of that, particularly in bars or poured bars. But if you're buying from one place, you should have some specifications on there. You can probably source that to understand if those are the same dimensions listed on other sites, and understand when you get it home and you do all those measurements yourself, that you are coming up with those same measurements and weights. So that's what this is really about, other than doing nothing at all and just trusting what you get and opening it and saying, yeah, it looks great. This is kind of my inexpensive, anyone can do these, spend a little bit of money and do these steps. So that's really what this is about. So I will have some recommendations for a couple of these items that I've done some research on that you might already have or find them to be useful and can find them and procure them yourself for your own use. So we'll get right into it and go over some recommendations. Okay, as promised, here's my recommendations for a couple, 2 or 3 items that you can get that are cost effective, that are not an XRF analyzer or having you go out and spend $1,000, $2,000 on a Sigma Metalytics verifier, which are great tools and certainly would be great to have. But if you did not want to go that route, again, first step, always buy from somebody you trust. In my last video, I gave some recommendations of places I've shopped and feel confident in, and ways to buy and where to buy. So you may have your own a list of those as well. So if you feel comfortable with that, that's the very first defense against buying, fake metals. What I like to do is have a jeweler's loupe on hand. Very easy to find these, 10-time loupe, so you can look at the metals up close, more so than the naked eye, that you can get to and see the grains of the metals, the gold and the silver. But secondly, as you see on screen, are scales. The other item is to weigh what you get. Every coin or every bar is also should be stamped with the type of metal, the weight, and the purity. So you know that if you're getting your product unpackaged and you have 1-ounce coins, that if you put a 1-ounce coin on a scale, generally speaking, let's just say silver, that it should weigh 1 ounce or just a fraction over that. It is not uncommon to get a little bit extra in the product, but you should not ever receive anything less than the weight that is stated that you're expecting. And these are generally in ounces troy. So with a couple of suggestion recommendations, the first one being kind of a pocket scale, ADBS 600. I believe this weighs up to about 29 ounces, which is great for single coins, smaller bars, 10, 5 ounce, or stacks of 20 1-ounce coins, or 25 a tube, say, of Canadian maples or gold coins, etc. As you then might look to get the higher sizes beyond that, such as a kilo bar that I mentioned and showed in my first video, this scale would not accommodate that on the scale to weigh. So this scale, which is the one I use most often, just because I like the size of it a little better as well, is the SmartWeigh Pro Pocket Scale Top 2 kg. That's also labeled here. So again, the first step, turn on your scale. Make sure it is set to OZT, or ounces troy. And then you want to tear it out, just to level it out to 0 before you put anything on it. So for instance, we'll take a beautiful Austrian Philharmonic that I had shown in the intro, and we place that on there, and we see exactly 1 ounce troy that's coming in at. We can take that same coin and put it over on this scale. Both of these are very accurate scales. Did some research before buying each of them and found that these are some of the most highly recommended scales. So we can see the, well, I'll just leave that there for a second. Similarly, we can take the 10-ounce troy Monarch Precious Metals bar, and of course we see 10.01 ounces there. So these are very accurate. Again, like I said, it's not too uncommon to get a little extra product in there, particularly if you're talking a silver bar. But like I said, if you're trying to weigh out a kilo bar, that is not going to go over very well there, so it exceeds that limit. We'll put this over here. You see 10.01, just like the other scale. And then of course we can put our kilo bar on here, and we see 32.16, which is exactly what we would expect to receive on the weight there. Again, a kilo is 1,000 grams. We also change. So additionally, you can do things like the ping test. There's pocket pingers, as you've probably seen from other YouTube channels, and with apps that you can get to download, and you do the ping in the right resonance, and it goes in line and shows you as having the proper metal and resonance for that ping. So that's another alternative. Also, when it comes to assay cards and gold and fractional, that becomes a little more difficult to weigh, but you can still weigh these. Again, a lot of this, what I'm recommending is for comparison, whether you're buying a bunch of product from one source or from multiple sources, or say you already have some in your stack and you know where you bought it and you feel comfortable where you bought it and that it's a real product, then you can also then compare that to something where you may be a little more unsure, but just to compare, test, weigh. Even an assay card, you can do that same. If it's the same, say a 5-gram gold bar from PAMP, if you buy another one from another source, they should weigh out relatively similar. Now again, there could be differences in age and timing, so be aware of that as well. So don't assume that it's not necessarily legit. I'm just saying that's something you could do, particularly if you're buying newer product from newer sources, and they should be all manufactured within the same amount of time. So anyway, I'll leave it at that, and hopefully this was helpful to some degree. If so, leave it in the comments, and appreciate you tuning in. Thanks.